Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Solera 5000 series slide out topper here in our 2015 Forest River Georgetown Class A motorhome. So if you're someone who does not want to get up onto the roof of your RV, especially when you got a Class A motorhome like this where it's super high up into the air, I mean we're talking probably 14, 15 feet here, and a lot of the time when you're getting out on the roof it's typically pretty slippery. Most of the time when you're closing up your RV at the end of your trip, there's a lot of dew because it's the morning and you got to get out of that campsite for the next person to come in and enjoy their time. So one of the biggest things is getting up on the roof and then cleaning off the top of your slide out box so that way when you bring it in, you don't have all those leaves, all that moisture and all this other stuff getting inside of your RV. And that's exactly what the slide topper is going to do for us, because this is now going to allow us to have all of that water just kind of shed off and any kind of debris. So if you have trees sitting over your campsite, you got leaves, sticks, little acorns, stuff like that falling in, all that stuff's going to get trapped on top of here. And the slide out seals do a pretty good job. They'll help with that moisture and water a lot. But a lot of the time, those sticks, those leaves, all that, when you close your slide out into the inside of your RV, you can usually look up on there and see a whole bunch of debris. And that's not what we want. We want to make sure that we're getting that all off so that way we don't have to deal with it at all. So aside from just that cleaning aspect, this is also going to make it a little bit easier on your AC unit, because now instead of the sun just beating directly on top of our slide out box, it's now going to be hitting our slide topper here and then kind of deflecting some of that and absorbing it when we have this nice air barrier here. So that way it can kind of take some of that beating instead of our slide out and then make the AC run a little bit less. So now we're not having to have it constantly running or kicking on a lot more than it really needs to with that added shade. So as far as installation goes, this isn't something that's very complicated. Majority of the time you already have an extrusion rail or a C-channel already built in, so that really takes a lot of the work out of it. In our case today, it already was built in, and we already had a slide topper in place, so they kind of already had it prepped. A lot of newer motorhomes will already have those inner brackets in place, so all you have to do is slap in the new ones and get your bead down the extrusion rail and you're all good to go. So overall, this is something that you could easily do yourself if you have an extra set of hands to help you and a few ladders so that way you can actually get it into place safely. But I do know that with the heights, with all the ladders, especially if you're looking at a much longer slide topper, maybe like a 20-foot one, you might want to have some help with that, and that might be the case where you kind of just ship that off to somebody else to do. And if you're looking for a shop to be able to get these installed for you, definitely feel free to use our dealer locator, and you can enter in your zip code to find a shop near you and get it professionally installed. Now if you all want to do this yourself, you got those buddies, you got the extra ladders, then stick around and I'll help walk you through the process. So before we begin our install, we're going to first need to figure out exactly what slide topper size we're going to need. Now there's a variety of different options here, and each one of these slide toppers is going to have about a 5-inch threshold that it can kind of cover, essentially. So with ours today, first thing we're going to do, and one thing if you don't have any friends with you to help you out, put a little piece of painter's tape on your tape measure. You can use that to help hold it while you go to the other end. And now we're going to be getting a measurement from the edge, the outer edge of our flange to the outer edge of our flange on the other side here. This flange piece that we have on our slide out just kind of sticks out past the box of our slide out. And that's what houses our seals and really closes everything up when the slide out comes in. So this is what we need to get our measurement off of. So for our specific slide out today, that's sitting right at 72 inches. So what I want to do is then go in and use our fit guide, and from there we can just type in 72 inches, and that's going to give us one of our options that's going to fall within that 72. So there are a couple different colors. We've got white and we've got black. Our neighbor today has black, so we're going to be matching up with that same black color so that everything stays the same, looks nice. But really that's it. All you need to do is just take that measurement, and then from there just kind of check for any obstructions. So in our case today there's nothing else here, but on the other side we are going to have some obstructions because on the other side that they also have a regular RV 12-volt awning that's going to come out, and those arms of that awning are pretty close to the edge of the slide out. So what we're typically wanting is about a minimum of 7 inches. So to give you some perspective on that, that's how much space we want to have, so that way we have plenty of room, because if you look up top at those arms, those stick out past our slide out. So we don't want to have this slide out come back in and end up touching anything when we retract the slide. All right, so we're over on the other side just so I can show you those examples. I thought the awning was a little bit closer. It's a little bit further off on that side, and we have our door in the way. over here. So awning's not gonna be a problem, but if you look right here, the door handle itself is really close. Now that wouldn't be an issue because the slide topper is mounted up to the top, but say the awning arm was here, or maybe that light was a little bit closer, when we go to throw this on, it could end up being an issue. So it's a good idea, just make sure that you double check everything, make sure that you have enough clearance. Now say we were in the situation where this awning arm was sitting over here and we just didn't have the clearance. That's where you are gonna have to size down. You can always kind of size down, you can't really size up. If you go up too far, what ends up happening is those extension rods that come over from the bracket that's on our slide out, those will start to kind of bend in because it's a lot of tension on that awning. So what will end up happening is over time it's going to warp and it's going to end up breaking on you. So sizing down is going to be our alternative to actually make it fit in some cases, but the problem with that is now we are trying to figure out exactly where we need to mount our brackets, because now we can no longer go off that easy, just put it in the corner and butt it up right to that corner. Now we have to kind of do a little bit of math, figure out where it's going to sit perfectly depending on that smaller size that we're using. So just kind of keep that in mind. Do a lot of measurements beforehand. It's a lot easier to do all your measurements, double check everything, make sure that everything is going to work properly before you ship it out to you, because this is going to come in a very big tube. It's not going to be something that's easy to transfer around or ship to and from. All right, so now that we know exactly what our awning replacement is going to be, it's time to actually remove the old one here. Now you might not always have an old one, but if you do, just follow along. It's only a couple steps to get it removed. Starting out, I am going to remove the screws that are through our C channel into our bead. Usually these, you can just use a small bit driver. Pop out. I'll have to get down to that other side in a bit. Another thing we're going to do is start popping out some of the screws on our extension rod here. So these are most likely going to be a square bit for you. And we're going to leave that bracket on for right now. We'll come back and take that off. I want to be able to just slide this out. So I'm going to move my ladder over. We're going to get the same screws out of that other side, and then we should be able to kind of shift this around. Okay, so normally I like to lock the arms out. Unfortunately, I can't slide this at all, so I was wanting to kind of get it out of the holder, hang on to the arm, because this is under a lot of tension. It's going to want to quick flip right up on you, and usually you can kind of gently set the arm up against here and then undo everything, get something in there to kind of hold it, because right on the edge of the end caps here, there's going to be a slot that you can go through. If you have anything like an old Allen key, I know we get a lot of furniture and stuff, you usually have some old Allen keys laying around. That or a pick, anything that's going to be about 1/8 of an inch or less in diameter. And what we do is you can kind of turn this arm until that hole lines up, and then you can poke it all the way through, and that'll lock it in place, so that way that tension isn't just undoing on you and potentially hitting you or your RV. So since I can't slide it around because it's too seized up, what I'm going to have to do is take off this bracket. I'm also probably going to pop that screw out so we can take the extension rod off too. So I'm going to pull the bracket off. All right, so I've got my Allen key in on that right side on the drive head, and we're gonna peel this away. This is just really stuck on there. It's not really fun to do on a ladder. Oh, they caulked it, that's why. So I'm gonna peel back on this caulk here a little bit, get this freed, and then this shouldn't really flip up on me because I do have that Allen key in and I have the spring locked, but still, if you're doing this at home, be careful. Make sure you're not accidentally having this fling up on you and hit you. All right, there we go. So there still is a little bit of tension on that. Let's see. We can get this side locked into. This one's got a little bit smaller of a hole. Usually they're pretty uniform, I find, but this one's a little bit different, but it might just be that there's a bunch of gunk or something in there. It's just kind of hard to see. There we go. So you can see how that just kind of locked right into place. Now at this point, there really is, honestly, is not much holding up our awning right now because the bead has completely fallen out of the fabric here. The last 4 or 5 inches is all that's holding this up right now. So we're gonna slide this out. I'm gonna have to probably open up our garage door, and I'm gonna definitely need a second set of hands because being up on the ladder this high, it's not really good to lean too far over. So I'm gonna get Buddy over here and we'll get this pulled down. All right, this one's a little bit smaller, so I'm gonna start pulling it out myself, and I got Matt here on the very end. He's gonna help take it once we get too far out. We can go a little bit more. There we go. Got our old awning removed now. So at this point, we want to clean everything up, get all that old butyl tape off of our slide out wall here, wipe it down with some alcohol. Maybe also kind of blow out the C-channel as well. Looks like there's a lot of leaves in there, so that can end up binding up and preventing us from being able to slide in the new slide topper. So I'm gonna get this all cleaned up and then we can move on to the next part. All right, now since our old holes aren't gonna match up with our new bracket holes, we're gonna need to fill in each one of those. And I've just got some gasket maker here and I'm just putting it right into there, hopefully filling up the entirety of that hole. And just a tiny bit of excess on the top there. And then we'll let these dry and get our brackets ready to put on. All right, now I've got my awning brackets out. We're gonna have little brackets that look like this. This is what's actually gonna mount up to our slide out. And then we'll have an outer bracket that's gonna mount up onto that. And that is gonna help us set our height too, because there's gonna be 2 different settings here. So you can see we've got 4 little slots that this can go into. Now if we put it into the top one, that's gonna have our awning sit a little bit lower. Now if we go with the bottom one, that's gonna have the awning sit a little bit higher up. Really, that's just going to depend on how your setup is. What we want to have is at least like 3 inches from our C-channel down to the roller tube, so that way we have a nice angle, so that way all of that water can just shed right off. We don't want that pooling up on top of our fabric. Now, before we install any of these, we need to make sure that we put some butyl tape on here, so that way we can really seal up each one of our screw holes. So you'll see in your bag of hardware, you've got these round head with a square bit tip on it, and those are all little self-tapping screws. Those are going to shoot right through here, and the butyl tape is going to wrap itself around each one of those threads and help seal up that hole, so that way we don't have any water intrusion. If you look at some of the screws when you're pulling them out and they're all rusty and corroded, it means you got water leaking in there, and that's not something we want. So we're going to go ahead, we'll get our butyl tape lined up with our holes on here, push down our butyl tape, get a nice seal there. I can rip off the excess. And you can see it's in each one of our holes, so we're good to go there. I've already got my other one already. We can pop off the backing, toss that, and we can take our screws. Like I said, bring that square-headed bit up there with your drill, and we're going to get these put in. Now, on our inner bracket, we're going to have a little lip on one side, and that is going to need to face up and butt up right into the corner of our T-molding here. All right, make sure that you get it as close as you can to the corner, up against the top and on the side. All right, now it's time to put in our hardware. Now, I did say button head screws. You're going to want to use the flat head screws here with that square tip for these, because if you have that button head stick out, you're not going to be able to get that outer bracket in place. So just double check, make sure you're using the correct screws, and you need to make sure that they're going in nice and straight and that that fully seats in, because like I said, if you don't have that fully in there, that head is going to prevent the outer bracket from going on. All right, now it's time to get our extension rods in place. You're going to notice one side's going to have a hole in it, and that's going to match right up with the arm on our awning. On either side, there's going to be one each, and then there's going to be 2 of these little screws here. That's what we're going to use to connect this up. So grab your Phillips head bit, get it all lined up. That one nice and tight. Let's do the other side. So one thing I wanted to point out before we get this up there, there's going to be a sticker on the inside of the fabric, and this sticker is super important. It's going to list out all the part numbers. Lippert's part number right there, that V000, that is exactly the part number that you're going to need on their end to actually look up this full awning. Now that info can also be used to help find new fabric. So your fabric gets torn, maybe you have a tree hit it or something like that, or just gets worn out over time, but the arms and the tube are still fine. You can just swap the fabric out. So super important to hang on to that. I'm actually going to peel this off and I'm going to put this inside of the RV because eventually this is going to wear out, and I want to be able to save this so that way if they ever have an issue later on, they can easily swap it out and they know exactly what they need. Okay, I've got Matt with me again. He's going to help me put our new awning in. Now when you're putting the fabric in, make sure the fabric is laying over the top of the roller. We want to make sure that we have that nice angle just like you're seeing right now. And you can also kind of look at the head of each side to kind of give you a reference of which way this needs to be oriented. Now at this point, what I've also done is I like to take just the needle nose pliers and kind of pry up on that extrusion rail, so that C channel, on the top and on the bottom of that corner, because usually when they cut these, it's a machine cut, it's really sharp, and what can end up happening is if you get this at a little bit of an angle, well now that sharp edge is going right across your fabric and it's cutting it all up. So I've pushed that out of the way, and I've got Matt holding that other end. We're going to slowly slide this into place and try to prevent any kind of rips or tears. We also want to watch our gutter here. All right, now we're going to take our outer bracket, we're going to slot that in on the extension rod, and then at the same time we're also going to be putting it through our inner bracket, and I'm going to be using the lower hole here, so that way this sits a little bit higher. So we can lift that back up and just kind of slide it through all three at the same time. So the two pieces for that inner bracket and then also the extension rod. Get that over. And then I'm going to line the the outer bracket up with our inner bracket. And then once we have our other one in place that Joe's getting on, we can then slide it back and forth and get it evenly spaced for both sides here. Now in your kit, you're going to have these little screws right here. They're black and it's just the threads, and it's got a little opening for a Allen key. And we're going to be using that to kind of lock the two brackets together. So depending on which slots you used, you might need to use the top holes or the bottom holes. In our case, since we used the bottom hole on our bracket here to get this a little bit higher up, we need to use those bottom holes. So get these just threaded in, and we're just going to go get them nice and tight essentially. Now there is Loctite on here too, so that way it can't back out, and it is going to be a little bit of a fight getting it in. And that's exactly what we want anyway, because we want this really biting into both brackets, so that way we don't have them potentially shifting on us. Now, like I was saying, we would want to shift this back and forth, and what I like to do is just use the portion of our extension rod that's going to be sticking out past our bracket to use that as a gauge. So what I'm doing is I'll just measure one side, right over here, I'm getting 2 3/8. Then I'll go to the other side, and I'll kind of move it back and forth until we get that even on both sides. And I've already gone ahead and done that just for the sake of time here. So 2 3/8 is what I'm getting on both edges, which means I am centered. So from there, we've got some more self-tapping screws. These ones are going to be silver, and we are going to run these through into our extension rod, and that's going to lock that in place so that way the awning can't slide back and forth. I like to make sure that it's nice and snug, fully in there, but you do want to be careful. You don't want to keep just going because it will end up snapping the head off. There we go. And I personally like to finish it off with whatever paint marker matches. So I'm going to paint this black real quick so that everything looks good and neat and uniform. Now our next step is going to be pulling out the retention clips. So you remember how we stuck those Allen keys in to lock in our old one? Well, these come with special clips that'll do the exact same thing. We're going to pop those out, and then we're going to run our slide in and out a few times. And what that's going to do is kind of help let this sit where it needs to sit, and then we can come back, we can start tightening it up, kind of pulling on it, and then we're going to shoot a screw into our extrusion rail, that C channel. And I don't have them on me, I got them down at the bottom, but they're very, very, very tiny screws, and we want to put those in about an inch from the edge of our fabric. But since we already have holes here, might have to go a little bit further in because I don't want to have that just kind of push and puncture into that second hole there. But getting this clip out is pretty easy. Just kind of pull up and like turn towards the trailer with the roller. And you can pop that clip out, let it go. And this is what that clip is going to look like. Now with that second clip removed, this is going to tension up nice and tight. And like I said, it's now time to run the slide in and out. All right, so we've ran this in and out a few times. I've also kind of massaged out some of the wrinkles. So to do that, what I like to do is just kind of release some of that tension, so kind of pull up on it. And then you can kind of pull on the fabric a little bit, try and wipe it down towards the outside, because there was a good wrinkle kind of right here. But I think we've gotten it out at this point. Now you may have to run this in and out a few more times even after doing this. Really, it's just going to kind of come down to personal preference and then just how bad some of the wrinkles are. You are going to have a few wrinkles just from the factory. Something that'll kind of work itself out most of the time depending on the severity of it. With ours, not too bad right now, but I bet you once we lock it in place, run it in and out a few times, we'll start to probably see a couple wrinkles until it really heats up in the sun and then cools back down. So, like I said, we're going to go about an inch in. I've got my little self-tapper, the little black one in your kit, and I'm going to put this in and I'm going to kind of pulse with the trigger on my drill because I don't want to slip off, and with this being a rounded surface, it's really easy to slip off and stab right into your fabric. We want this to go through that. All right, now that we get that one tight, I'm going to move my ladder, get to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing. All right, once you have those screws in, you've run the slide in and out a couple of times, you're happy with it, last thing to do is you're going to take the little cover here, and this is going to slide right into the front of our outer bracket. Now some of these I found will just easily slip in, some of them want to fight you, kind of just a crapshoot on what you're going to get. But this is one where you can't actually just snap it in, you do have to get it into the track. All right, swap to the other side, went right on. So that's kind of what I was saying, where some of them will fight you, some of them won't. Well, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the Solera 5000 series RV slide out topper here on our 2015 Forest River Georgetown Class A motorhome. My name's Kevin. If you still have some questions about what's going to be the right fit for your slide outs, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.